We have some important news. The Republican lawmakers from both the House and Senate are moving to pass a bill that would affect the low-income Americans. Many households can now take action and claim their rebate payments. It may be worth hundreds of dollars. A new group of Senate and House Republicans introduced the companion bills that would force the federal government to factor potential adverse effects into energy policy decisions. This is a prevention act and is included by the senators. It's intended to prevent energy poverty and ensure that at-risk communities have access to the affordable care and energy they need. Under the bill, federal agencies will be required to access impacts and energy-related policies that have on a variety of white Americans. Senator Dan Sullivan told Fox that the people most negatively impacted by the Biden administration's war on American energy have been those in the rural countries. The legislation firstly requires the U.S. Comptroller General Office to issue a joint report to Congress. At-risk communities experiencing energy poverty are important, and the bill mandates the CBO as part of its review process to access how energy-given legislation impacts at-risk communities and their access to affordable energy. It would further direct the DOI to study on how any proposed executive action may alleviate energy poverty in at-risk communities. The bill additionally requires all agencies issuing energy-related rulemaking to certify the action will not create energy poverty in at-risk communities. This is an act signed by Joe Biden. It created 2 energy-efficient rebate programs that would say some or even more would get their money. Now, one program is called the Home Electrification and Appliance Rebates. It offers up to $14,000, and the other calls for the Home Efficiency Rebate. It offers up to $8,000. The low-income households are defined as those earning 80% or less of the area's median income. Middle-income families earn 80% to 150% of the median. Under the second program, rebates for improvements like installing energy-efficient doors and windows, smart thermostats, and air conditioners are tied. Also, about more drivers are going in without auto insurance as inflation and higher premiums pressure their budgets. The number of households have at least one uninsured vehicle in this program. So this could solve some difficulties. Now, the increase comes after home insurance grew at an unprecedented rate, and now the cost of auto insurance even jumped 20% over the year. As many Americans brace for the start of student loan repayments, more may consider foregoing car insurance to make ends meet. But is that the good decision?
Yes.
Question about Senator Rick Scott is urging Senate Democrats to pass a $16 million disaster relief bill for the minibus. What's your response to that?
Look, the House bill leaves out disaster aid completely. We believe in disaster aid. We want to come together in the Senate on a bipartisan CR. Yes.
Mr. Schumer, have you had any conversations with Leader Jeffries about a break glass in case of emergency type plan, like a discharge petition? Do you know if House Democrats are planning anything along those lines to avert a government shutdown?
Look, right now, House Democrats and Senate Democrats are the same. We are urging our Republican colleagues to pursue the only path out of avoiding a shutdown, which is a bipartisan bill.
Yes. Is it your intention to add Ukraine money and disaster money to the CR, and how confident are you have the Republican votes you need to pass it?
Well, look, we'd like to work on a bipartisan basis on the CR with the Republicans. We've gotten indications that they want to do that. We've done it very successfully on the appropriations process, and hopefully we can come together bipartisan here as well. Yes.
With the supplemental funding request from the White House, could you, or are you open to separate Ukraine funding from the disaster relief funding so that there's less partisanship?
Look, I'm not going to speculate about how to package it, other than to say we need a bipartisan process each way. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. Senator Collins and Senator Johnson are both leading the luncheon now, saying that they've reached a deal where he'll consent to move forward with the minibus if he's guaranteed a vote on his Preventing Government Shutdowns Act. Would you support that?
I haven't seen that, so I'm not commenting.
At what point does the Senate decide to move first and try to pass the CR over here if the House can't get its job?
Look, our
To lose out on more than just a refund. Because the IRS warns that workers may be eligible for the so-called Earned Income Tax Credit, which provides a tax break even without a balance due. The Earned Income Tax Credit is putting an average of $2,000 back in recipients' banks and helping lift more than people out of poverty. 31 million people applied and received this credit last year, but if the taxpayers who are eligible for the credit still don't claim it. Tax credits can help reduce how much you owe or how much you can give. A refund for. There are a few basic qualifications for the Earned Income Tax Credit, including being a U.S. citizen, having earned income from wages, and also in the Senate, Democrats are warning the president not to agree to anything that would hurt the low-income Americans or to undermine the battle against climate change. Democratic senators are increasingly concerned that any deal that Biden strikes with Kevin McCarthy will include some major concessions that make it easier to approve fossil fuel extraction projects. It has spurred some of them to use the president to raise debt limit unilaterally and circumvent Republican lawmakers altogether. Democrats had urged Biden for months not to negotiate with McCarthy over a bill to raise debt limit. The president followed that advice for months, but he changed his course this week. And now there are several Democrats that have said that they will not vote for any legislation that will go against the promises they made to the American people. More relief bills need to be passed in Congress. Chuck Schumer has also confirmed that he's been having private conversations with two holdout Democratic senators on making big changes to the filibuster. Schumer even admitted that pushing through a rule change like this at least would be an uphill climb, but a climb that needs to be made to help the American people. And changing the filibuster is actually an idea that is supported by several Senate Democrats that want to get President Biden's bill passed as quickly as possible. And there are Republicans and a few Democrats that are currently standing in the way of passing Biden's economic agenda. The Senate has a long-standing practice of allowing any one senator to object to proceedings, and what's generally referred to as a filibuster can pause action and even on votes. This is what is known as a filibuster, and as the country and Congress has grown more partisan, the filibuster has actually become wealthier Minnesota residents will pay more. The deal presented late Wednesday night comes after months of negotiations among Democrats on how much to cut taxes and who should benefit the most. With a historic $17.5 billion budget at the proposal, the Republicans have been critical of the plan and also pushing for more of the surplus to be devoted to tax cuts. The final agreement on the one-time tax rebate is smaller than $1,000 for individuals and $2,000 for married couples. But under this finalized deal, Minnesota people who make up to $75,000 a year can get a one-time refundable tax credit, and people will get a lot of money and help from this department. Other credits that could result in lowering your tax burden or even a large refund include the Earned Income the Tax Credit and the Child Independent Care Credit. The latter was made refundable in 2021, meaning up to $8,000 could get reimbursed on expenses for daycare and such, which show up on tax refunds. However, households that welcome the new family member could also be eligible for $1,400 for the third economic stimulus check. We have a lot of good news, but the fourth stimulus payment that I want you to know, so continue watching the video. President Biden is now meeting with Democrats and Republicans to finally reach an agreement on the next package. Americans are urging President Biden to sign a new executive order that would allocate billions of dollars towards a fourth round of payments. So, we have some good news. President Biden's administration is actually going to renew its push with lawmakers to secure crisis funding this week. That's according to a White House official that told CNN that following inaction from the Senate on a $10 billion funding package, it is likely a deal will be reached very soon. The White House official has said as Congress turns back to work, the Biden administration will be focused on working with lawmakers to secure funds to keep aid flowing